He wanted to be Hitler's heir, a war hero turned political monster. Draped in medals, wrapped in velvet, and always demanding the spotlight, Hermann Göring wasn't just one of Nazi Germany's most powerful men. He was its most flamboyant, its most arrogant, and in the end, its most pathetic. This is the story of how the Reichsmarschall went from high-flying ace to bloated prisoner, from master of the Luftwaffe to a man begging for a bullet, and how just hours before the rope tightened around his neck, he vanished into death on his own terms. But this isn't about how Göring lived, it's about how he fell, and it's a story that's hard to stomach. Before the Nazis, Hermann Göring was a decorated fighter pilot from World War I. Charismatic, ambitious, and always chasing power, he joined Hitler early, back when the Nazi Party was still seen as a fringe movement. But Göring had something the others didn't: a love for spectacle. He didn't just follow Hitler, he helped market him to the world. By 1933, Göring had climbed his way to the top. He founded the Gestapo, he orchestrated political purges, he built the Luftwaffe into a massive war machine. And through it all, he smiled, joked, wore custom-designed uniforms with gold embroidery, and carried a baton like a king. While others hid their cruelty, Göring flaunted his. He wasn't just addicted to fame, he was literally addicted. Göring had a severe morphine habit, first developed after a war injury and later spiraled out of control. At the height of his power, he was taking dozens of pills a day, sometimes more than 100 milligrams of morphine at once. But his addiction wasn't just chemical, he was obsessed with wealth. Göring looted thousands of pieces of art from across Europe, stashed them in his estate at Carron Hall, and lived like royalty while millions starved. He once said, "If someone is shooting at me, I want to know who it is so I can shoot back." But by 1945, he wasn't shooting back, he was just trying to escape. As the war turned, so did Hitler. Göring's Luftwaffe failed during the Battle of Britain. Later, as Allied bombs flattened German cities and the Eastern Front collapsed, Hitler lost faith in his once favorite. In April 1945, with Berlin on the edge of destruction, Göring sent a telegram suggesting he'd take over leadership of the Reich. Hitler saw it as a betrayal. He ordered Göring stripped of power, arrested, and confined to his estate in Bavaria. Days later, Göring surrendered to American forces, trying to bargain for a future he no longer had. What followed wasn't just imprisonment, it was public humiliation, courtroom collapse, and a shocking final twist that no one saw coming. When Göring surrendered to US troops in May 1945, he wasn't dragged in chains. He walked in like a celebrity, dressed in full uniform, chest gleaming with medals. He greeted American generals with handshakes and grins, believing he could talk his way into leniency. But by the time he reached Nuremberg, the mask had started to slip. The Allies weren't impressed. They stripped him of his titles, his drugs, and his delusions. Göring was no longer a Reich royalty, he was just another prisoner with a number. Still, he tried to regain control. In the courtroom, he played the role of the defiant statesman. He smirked, interrupted, whispered to fellow Nazis like they were still running the show, and, in a way, he was. During the Nuremberg trials, Göring became the unofficial leader of the Nazi defendants. He boasted, dodged, and dominated the courtroom like it was another stage performance. Even when confronted with the horrors of the Holocaust, Göring deflected blame. He claimed he was a man of order, not murder. But behind the arrogance was something darker, a man unraveling. His morphine withdrawal was brutal. Shaking hands, cold sweats, uncontrollable rage, and yet he still managed to steal attention from every other defendant. British prosecutor Sir David Maxwell Fyfe called him the most dangerous man in the dock. He memorized documents, dismantled questions, and twisted the narrative. Göring didn't think he'd hang. He thought he'd win. But on October 1st, 1946, the judgment came down, loud and final. Guilty on all charges, death by hanging. Göring didn't blink. After his sentence, Göring begged for execution by firing squad. He said it was the death of a soldier, a man of honor, but the tribunal refused. Hanging was for criminals, and that's what he was. In private, Göring raged, not at the verdict, but at the method. The rope, the drop, the public shame. He wrote bitter letters to his wife, claimed the trial was a farce, and said he was being murdered. Fellow prisoners watched his ego collapse day by day. His jokes stopped. His eyes grew dark. His posture slumped. No one feared him anymore, not even the guards. But Göring wasn't finished. Somehow, despite round-the-clock surveillance, strip searches and locked cells, he had a plan. Smuggled in through a fountain pen, or maybe hidden in luggage, or swallowed and retrieved. What we do know is this. On the night of October 15th, just hours before he was supposed to hang, Hermann Göring bit down on a hidden glass capsule of cyanide. When guards entered his cell at 10:45 p.m., they found him sprawled on his cot, convulsing, blue-lipped, dead. He cheated the hangman. The guards didn't believe it at first. Göring had been under strict watch, checked regularly, searched daily. But there he was, lying on his cot in cell 5, motionless, blue-tinged lips, a faint chemical smell in the air. They found a shattered glass capsule near his body, crystals embedded in his teeth. Hermann Göring had taken cyanide, and no one knew how. The entire prison wing erupted into chaos. Guards were called in. Doctors arrived too late. His body was rushed out under sheets. Just hours earlier, the gallows had been prepared for him. Now, the rope hung empty. Theories flooded in. Some said he hit the capsule in a hollowed-out tooth. Others believed it was sewn into the lining of his uniform or smuggled in with help from sympathetic guards. The most credible came from US Private Herbert Stivers, who later confessed to unknowingly delivering a fountain pen containing the cyanide, passed to him by a mysterious German woman claiming it was medicine. Whatever the method, one thing was clear. Göring had planned this long before his sentence was read. He'd been hoarding power right until the end, and he wasn't about to let the Allies control his final moments. When news of his suicide broke, the Allied tribunal was furious. Chief Prosecutor Robert Jackson called it a shameful escape. Others saw it as a final insult. Göring denied the victims of the Nazi regime the justice of a public execution. Fellow Nazi prisoners were stunned. Some laughed in disbelief. Others were jealous. Joachim von Ribbentrop reportedly muttered, "The fat swine had the courage to do it." Wilhelm Keitel, the Wehrmacht commander, was horrified. He hung the next morning. But Göring's final act also revealed a flaw in the system. The world had waited years to see him hang. Instead, he died smirking, on his own terms, in a quiet prison cell. Göring's body was cremated alongside the other executed Nazis at Ostfriedhof Cemetery in Munich. His ashes were scattered in the Isar River to prevent any grave from becoming a shrine. No headstone, no honor, just silence. But his name didn't fade. Göring became a symbol, not just of Nazi brutality, but of arrogance, cowardice, and manipulation. The man who started as a war hero, lived like a king, and ruled with an iron fist, chose poison over the noose, and in doing so, left behind a final legacy of betrayal. He stole justice, and he knew it. Göring didn't die a martyr, he died a manipulator. Even in death, he clung to control, dodging the noose with the same smug grin he wore while orchestrating terror. And that's what makes his story so disturbing, because it proves something terrifying. Even monsters know how to perform. Even monsters plan their exits. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.